Prazzi Beam Cutter. This is a chainsaw that mounts onto your circular saw. Is it a piece of junk? Is it a great tool? Is it somewhere in between? We are going to find out today. I'm going to show you how I mounted this on the skill saw, and then we're going to do some test cuts. All right, right on. All right, here is the Prazzi Beam Cutter 12-inch saw attachment, 12-inch cutting capacity. Model PR7000 for 7 1/4 and 8 1/4 worm drive saws. I'm going to be putting this on my skill saw right here. All right, I've had a few friends that have had this and used it with good results. I've seen some reviews online where people have had some troubles with it. We're going to put it to the test and see how this works. We'll get this set up on the saw. All right, let's open the box. We got some literature here, user's manual, some read before using, upgrade kit. I guess you can get an 18-inch bar for this, but let's take a look at the blade here. Now, this is basically a chainsaw that you can put on your skill saw, and it is a very cool design, cool idea. I've used it before. It has worked really good. I've never owned one. I've only used one briefly. So we're going to test this out on the worm drive. Let's take a quick look at it. All right, this mounts onto the worm drive saw. It just has a little sprocket here, just like any chainsaw. The blade is not crazy thick. The bar, I should say, is not very thick. It's kind of a smaller chain. Reminds me of a steel Roll-O-Matic, those small. I have a small chainsaw like that. And then this has a kind of a, what do you call that? A riving knife, but I think it's more for protection and kickback. You notice that the worm drive spins this way, so the teeth are going to be coming up as you cut in. So I think that's kind of interesting. All right, first things first, we're going to remove the blade. And this is a left-handed thread. After the blade, we're going to remove this bushing right here. And now they're saying to remove this bottom guard. And if we look closely, there is a little clip. It's kind of a spiral clip that goes around this deal right here. So I'm going to try to pick this out. If I can get this. Yeah. See that? Let's see if I can get a close-up. All right. See this? It's like a little spiral clip that spins and holds that on. So I think the deal is that you just kind of pull that off in a spiral deal. Let's take a closer look at this clip. See this? All right, pull that off. Perhaps got to remove this spring first. This spring right here that puts the tension on here comes up and it clips onto a little deal on the back. So, all right, just pushing that up and pulling this through that hole. All right, now to take this bottom guard off, I think if I drop the foot all the way down, I can lift this up a little bit, and that will make it past this little bumper. I can slide that there, pop that off. All right, now instead of using this bushing that is usually used for a circular saw blade, they give you a different bushing. So I'm going to slide that bushing onto the arbor, take our Prazzi Beam Cutter blade, drop this through the foot. I have the foot extended all the way down. Slide this down through here. All right, that sits just like that. And they give you a different left-handed threaded bolt, a little bit longer one. It comes with this little beveled washer. So left-handed thread, let's put this in. All right, now depress the lock button in the back and tighten this down. All right, now it's time to clamp this to our adjustable foot piece right here. So I got this all the way down. I will clamp that tight and see this as this pivots, but they give you 2 bolts right here, little carriage bolts with a square inside head. I'll drop that through, put a washer and a nut on the back. I think this would be a good case for a nylock nut, as there's probably some vibration. Here's these 2 nuts from the back side. I will tighten these down. All right, they're also saying to lock these 2 screws down. That's a 5/32 Allen key, so I will lock these 2 down. Now, I have heard reports that with vibration that these have gotten loose. This could be a good candidate for some blue Loctite on those. All right, now I'm just gonna look at the blade tension, and that actually seems pretty good for the blade tension. And I'm gonna lock this down, and I quickly found out that this is metric, and this is a 12mm, so I'll make sure that that's tight. Now I'm gonna flip it over, and I wanna check for square off of this plate. Let's see what we got. Okay, so that is a little out of whack. I don't know if you can see that, so I'm gonna, right, see that right there? So I'm gonna adjust this plate, get this nice and square. All right, that took a little bit of screwing around, but I think I got it pretty good now. Looking at it with the old Starrett. So, you know, and I understand that this does have a little spring in it back and forth. We'll see how square this cuts. All right, after further reading on adjusting the chain tension, this little lever right here, they are saying to loosen this hex nut, maybe loosen this one a little bit, put some tension on that. This moves this whole housing up, so it's putting tension on the chain in that manner. I feel like the tension is pretty good right now, so I'm gonna leave it just like it is. I could see though, you know, checking these 2 nuts and screws and putting a little tension on those just to make sure everything's tight. All right, let's fire it up and see what we got. Right, it's a little shimmy shake when it comes to a stop. And you can see some oil spraying out here. Now, the only thing about this, unlike a chainsaw, is that it doesn't have an oiler for oiling the blade. So I think you're gonna have to keep constant oil on the chain. There is a little hole right here, just like a chainsaw has. And you can put some oil into this front sprocket. You know, it might even be a good idea to fabricate something down the road that has a hole right here where you can drip some oil in through a little tube or something like that. I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes. All right, what I'm making right here is a little guide sled for our saw, and I feel this is almost essential for using the saw as far as getting a good cut with it. So I have some Euro ply there that's a 1/4 inch thick that I cut to 8 inches, and then I have some 3/4 inch ply that I cut to 4 inches. Staple them together, and then trim that off with the saw, and that makes a very nice guide. All right, here we go with our first test cut. Let's give it a run. Okay, this was my biggest concern as far as getting a nice square cut. If we put this on here, that is just perfect. That worked out deluxe, right? And I think a big part of getting this nice and square is using that sled jig, that guide track for the saw, and making sure that that's clamped down tight to the surface. Look at that. That is a beautiful thing. I am very impressed with that. Now, this is the reason why I bought this Prazzi Beam Cutter, is because I am making these redwood rounds into tables for a customer. And at his request, he wanted me to fill in these where they checked with a piece of wood. So what I'm going to do is cut out a pizza-shaped pie piece here. I'm going to cut that out with the beam saw. And then I'm going to cut another piece of cedar from another round that I have, the same size, and glue that into this wedge. Okay, now the beauty of having a guide like this is that you can just drop this right onto the line, throw some clamps on this. That's a lot better than trying to freehand, this saw through. Let's look at the results. I already have, but I'm going to show you guys. But look at that. This is much more than I expected out of this tool, and I think I'm expecting a lot out of this tool. I don't know that everyone's looking for this precise of a cut from it. So I'm really impressed for what it is. I don't know what it was, 150 bucks or something for the Prazzi Beam Cutter, and that is great. I'm really impressed. So I got this wedge cut out. I'll cut the tip of this out with a Japanese saw so I can get the wedge all the way in there. You can't get all the way back there with the beam cutter. So I'll go in there with the Japanese saw. But look at that. That is pretty darn sweet. I just wanted to show you a close-up of the cut so you can see for yourself the texture and how nice that cut is. Now, I understand this blade is brand new out of the box. This is the first couple of cuts that it's made, but I'm pretty impressed. And I know you can get ripping chains. This is a ripping cut on the wood. This is not a cross cut, and I'm sure that chain that's in there is made more for a cross cut. I'm sure they don't supply a chain that does a ripping type of thing that you can get for like an Alaskan sawmill, that type of deal. But that's pretty impressive for what that little device is to add onto your skill saw. Pretty cool. All right, there you go, folks. The Prazzi Beam Cutter seems to work pretty well for what I'm using it for. I don't know how it's gonna work out over the long haul. Hopefully it holds up. A few takeaways that I think is to set it up, make sure everything's nice and tight. Who knows, I might have to go back, put a little Loctite on some of these screws, make sure everything's cranked down. Keep this chain oiled, I think, is a big one. Tri-Flow is really nice. It does have like a little silicone in there that might help stick to that, not wear off as quick. Who knows? There might be another oil that might be better, like some regular chainsaw bar oil type of deal. I think another big thing is using a guide. I think that might be key for success as far as getting a nice square cut, getting a nice straight line with this, is to make one of these guides. This is more for cutting a long cut. You can make ones, that are just for cross cutting that are maybe a little bit shorter. I think checking the blade, making sure that this shoe is nice and square, checking that often is going to be key too. And maybe pushing through the cut, slow and steady wins the race. That might be the deal with this, not trying to force this through. Of course, it is a chainsaw. You got to watch out for kickback, that type of thing. But overall, so far, so good. Maybe down the road, I'll give another little video, a review of how it's working out. So I hope you guys are doing great. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see y'all soon. All right, right on. Right on, folks. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Pass this on to a friend, and please leave a comment. Tell me what you're thinking. All right, right on.